All right, welcome everybody to a very impromptu last second vlog. I am out here at a place I've never photographed before, or if I have photographed here before, I haven't photographed here in probably like 5 years. And I've got this pier behind me going out to this incredible sunset. And I've got the 10 stop Firecrest ND filter on the camera right now, doing some 20-second exposures. A lot of lens flares since I am kind of angled into the sun, or just slightly off angled to it. So did one at f16 to get a nice starburst, and then I did one at f8, which was only a 4-second exposure with how bright it is, and put my finger over the sun to ensure that there wouldn't be any lens flare where I was getting lens flare before. So hopefully those two will blend very well together. But we do have some nice clouds overhead, and hopefully when the sun dips a little bit lower, we'll get some nice light on those. And I am shooting in landscape orientation right now, and I can kind of show you guys what this is going to look like here. So as you can see, this is basically the composition. Pretty straightforward, and I can actually really quickly show you guys here what I was talking about. So there is the shot blocking the lens flares. So there's the one without. You can see we have a lens flare like there and there, and for the shot with this, I did two with the finger in it. We can completely eliminate those, and hopefully when we blend those out, we don't mess with our f16 starburst. But I mean, look at this. Absolutely incredible last minute shoot here today, and these rocks right behind me make for a very good table for my bag. All right, we've just wrapped up shooting for the evening. Unfortunately, we didn't get enough light on the clouds as I was hoping to, so once the sun went down, things started to look a little worse. So I actually prefer the shots I took earlier when the sun was still a little bit higher in the sky, especially with the long exposures. Those look really, really, really good. And I've been looking for another Lake Erie photo to be able to print to go with my next release, and I think this is definitely going to be one of them. And I'm just kind of wrapping up right now by shooting another long exposure under this dock here, and we'll see how it looks. Just kind of an experimental shot, something to frame up and then come back again someday and try it again when it's a little brighter out, because it's a little too dark, I think, for this shot to work. So, you know, it's just experimenting. Experimenting is good. So I'm going to pack everything up, walk all the way back, and we'll get out of here. So again, my apologies for the impromptu phone vlog. I apologize if the audio and video quality is a little bit worse than the previous, but going out and exploring and going to a new location definitely paid off, and I kind of wanted to capture that. And this was the only way I really could do that, because I didn't bring my video camera. And I was gonna kind of give in to going to Evangola State Park again, because I'm very familiar with it. I know my way around the place, all the ins and outs, things like that. And you know, that's comfortable, right? But comfort is the enemy of progress. So we broke the comfort zone we get out here, and I think I definitely got rewarded for it, because the photos you'll see when we get back to the studio, I think they're really, really stunning, honestly. I think I might have found the next shot that I'm gonna get printed, and I think it's a really good one. It's kind of a classic shot, you know. There's a lot of people that do shots with the pier pointing out at sunset, but I quite like it. Do a long exposure with it, and I think it came out very, very well, and I think I can put my own unique spin on it via post-processing. So very excited to edit these images over the week. A couple of deer on my walk back. Huh.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the studio after what was a very short-lived photo vlog out in the field. Again, I apologize for only being able to record on my phone, but I just felt like I had to document it in any way that I could. So again, I apologize for the poor audio. Hopefully things sound a lot better now that we are back in the studio. But I think I talked about it briefly while I was out there, but I was very, very happy with the conditions that we were met with. They definitely could have been better, of course, but I think with the compositions that I was able to get, I came away with what is probably some of the best photos I think I've ever gotten, which is not something you can say super often, so I'm very happy with that. Now, with that being said, we are going to go over a few of the images that I've gotten that I think are my favorites. I'll talk about the few that I think work really well and a few that I think don't work super well, and I'll give my reasons as to why, as well as how we can even improve on some of the photos that we've already gotten. Now, luckily at the point while I'm recording this, I've already gone through and edited all the photos to completion, so we can look at the final results and compare them to the Lightroom catalog straight out of camera. And I also have some prints that I'm going to show you guys as well. A few prints that are going to be a part of my Lake Erie Vistas collection. That'll be the next collection available on my website, MikeEnglishPhoto.net, which you'll find a link that down in the description below. So let's head over to Lightroom and take a look at a few of these photos. So as I said, some of these photos have already been edited so that they could be ready for post-processing in Photoshop, because a couple of these photos were going to require some blending, so obviously we had to take them over to Photoshop. And I'm just more used to editing photos in Photoshop. I like all of the tools that are available there as opposed to just editing in Lightroom, although I'm not opposed to just editing things solely in Lightroom. But this is the first photo here, and as you can see, one of the major issues, and I talked about this in the field, was the fact that there are so many lens flares. And this is primarily because of my angle to the sun. The sun was not behind any clouds, it was straight head on, pointed at the camera where we had a lot of glass on the front of the camera, so that created a lot of reflections and with it a lot of lens flares. So as you can see here, even if I zoom in, you can see all of these colorful dots here on the photo, and again, those are all lens flares. Even if we go up a little bit, we see these hexagonal ones around our f/16 starburst, which I think looked really phenomenal. Something I have to remember to keep doing as we go out in the field more, where we have photos with the sun in it. And then we have these sort of less nice looking ones. Like the hexagonal ones are kind of cool because they're unique. They have these nice geometric shapes to them. They kind of match the color of the rays of the sun too, so I don't mind those so much being there. But we have these colorful dots here, these red dots, these green ones, and they do kind of look weird. And you can see not only they are above the horizon, but they are below the horizon. And we also have this really long one right here as well, and a few hot pixels. There's some there as well. So this one no doubt was going to require being a blend. So as you can see here, I have my two photos with the finger, my own hand in the shot to be able to get rid of and reduce some of those lens flares. And I think this one actually ends up working a little better. And one of the more difficult things about this too, normally this technique works super great because you're shooting a regular exposure, so you don't have to worry so much about your finger moving in the frame, right? It's much more of a solid figure here, which is, you can see around my finger, around the edges, it's very blurry because, again, I had to try to hold my finger in place for around, I think this was a 6-second exposure, and the one prior was a 5-second exposure. So I couldn't keep my finger in the same spot throughout the entire photo. And normally you don't have to deal with that, but in this case I did. So I couldn't get as clean as a blend as I wanted to around those flares without blending some of my finger back into the shot. So the final edited photo that you guys will see, there are still some lens flares there, unfortunately, but pretty much all, if not all of the lens flares below the horizon are completely gone, and that's what I was hoping to achieve. Maybe not reduce all of the lens flares, but get rid of a good chunk of them, maybe like 90% of them. And another thing that made it a little bit more difficult to blend too was the fact that we had such a big discrepancy in our f-stop and shutter speeds. We went from an 8-second shutter, well 6-second shutter here at f8 to a f16 shutter at a 20-second exposure. So not only in this shot here with the starburst, being great at f16, but a lot of the detail is a little softer because we are shooting at that higher f-stop. And we also have things looking a lot more smoother, a lot more streakier. The water's smoother, the clouds are a lot more streakier, as opposed to the f8 one where it was only a 6-second exposure. F8's right around that sweet spot for the lens, so everything looks sharp, but the clouds aren't as smooth, the water isn't as smooth. So that was a little bit tricky to blend. And I'll go through the Photoshop file and show you guys everything that I did to get to the end result. So there was that one. And I even went back, just before I started recording this, I went back and looked at this photo, which was just before the set of green photos down here in the bottom, which are the set that I used to edit from. And these were, I believe, brackets, or they might not have been brackets. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember exactly, but this photo here, as you can see, does have a few small lens flares, but because the sun was still behind the clouds a little bit, it didn't give that much of a harsh direct shine onto the lens of the camera. So we didn't give that much lens flare, and the clouds kind of acted like a mini lens. So this was also shot at f10 too. So we still actually have a decent starburst there, as you can see. I don't know if I like it as much as I like the f16 one. The f16 was a bit more pronounced. So that's why I kind of ended up going with that version. Although this one definitely could work. And you can see I did another one with a finger in the frame. But as you can see, you know, over the course of that 20-second exposure, my finger ended up moving around. I think that's why I ended up going to the f8 one, just to try to deal with that problem I was having. And then we go to a little bit later in the shoot here where we have this shot. And I still might edit this one. I really like the highlights on these clouds here. This was f8 at 20 seconds. I was still able to get a really long exposure at f8 because it was a little bit later in the evening. The sun is just on the horizon, and again, these highlights here, the blue and the orange, look really good. The only problem I have with this photo is that a lot of the clouds actually ended up moving out of the left side of the frame and overhead. So there's now this lot of dead space, I think, above the pier. I don't know if that really hurts the image or if it helps the image. We do have a nice bit of clouds on the right side, you know, where the sun is, where you could argue maybe the photo's lacking a little bit of interest. Where on the left side, the pier and the architecture and the windmills behind it really dominate the part of the frame. So maybe it doesn't need as much clouds, but I'm not entirely sure. I haven't edited this one, but I do have it marked in here. And then we also have this one, and I ended up actually editing this one to completion. This was a single raw, didn't need to do any blending because, again, those clouds were acting as a bit of a buffer between the sun and the camera, preventing a bunch of lens flares. So I really ended up liking this one, and we still have a decent amount of clouds on the left side of the frame, and they are catching a little bit of color as well, which is always great. And then as we got to post-sunset into sort of twilight, I ended up taking the ND filter off and just taking some regular exposures, whereas here you can see the clouds are no longer smooth and the water has all of its detail back because it's just a normal 1/40 second exposure at f10. And I did end up shooting, I think, just -1, 0, and +1 exposure brackets. And I was waiting until the right moment where we would get some decent color on these clouds out here. And as you can see here, if I zoom in, you can see it absorbing some of those deep reds from post-sunset. That's what I was looking for. I wanted to see if we get some of that color up on the top of the clouds, but we never ended up getting that, which is unfortunate. But, you know, I'll take, you know, what we can get. So this one I don't like as much. I feel like it's just a little less organized. I think the smooth water really works well here for this pier shot. And I think the pier is just a little bit, you know, a little bit squished to the left side of the frame based on the perspective. The previous photos, I was facing a little bit more this way to the pier, and this way I was a little closer to it, so we don't have as much of it in the left side of the frame. So I don't know if I like it as much. I might edit it. I probably won't, though, because I think the other versions just look so much better. And then the last shot I ended up getting is this under the pier shot, and I like this one a lot. I know this style of photo is done quite a bit, and I can definitely see why. It's a really cool and unique angle. It gives you this very, like, artistic and abstract, like, gateway, like, doorway look that kind of tunnels your vision out to a very specific point. And obviously this was post-sunset. I would really like to reshoot this pre-sunset with the sun still in the sky. And depending on the time of the year, if we could line the sun up to be dead center in this photo, I think that would be something really fantastic. Now, another thing I thought about doing this photo, I've already added this one to completion, and I only thought about this after the fact, is that if I were to crop in and get rid of these two pillars on either side, and maybe with that crop up a little bit, and, you know, focus in more on these pillars that are a little bit more like grouped together, and get rid of that kind of dead space that is between those pillars that are closer up, like these big ones on the side. Maybe that will look better. I'm not entirely sure, but overall, I think this is a pretty stellar image for how simple it is. And again, I think the weather conditions, luckily the sky still looked fantastic, but the sun been higher in the sky, maybe it would have looked even better. So this is something I'm going to reshoot. Also, another thing I wanted to fix as well, as you can see, I shot this at f4, which I made a mistake doing this in the field. I should have stayed at f8 or f10. I should have just raised my ISO up. I was afraid to do that. I don't know if necessarily afraid is the word, but I just didn't think about it at the time when I was shooting. So being at f4, we had a more narrow depth of field, whereas these pillars here are out of focus. These ones are in focus, and then as you get out to the horizon, things get out of focus again. Now, maybe that's not super noticeable on a phone, but maybe on a print blown up really big, those things are going to start to look a little too out of focus for my liking. So this is either going to need a photo stack or to be shot earlier in the day so we can use a higher f-stop without cranking our ISO up and introducing a lot of noise. So those are the photos. Now we're going to go into Photoshop really quickly, and I'm going to show you guys what the editing process looked like. All right, so here we are in Photoshop, and as you can see, I did quite a bit to this photo. I mean, it looks like a lot, but it really isn't. It's just kind of fine-tuning. So this is what it looked like straight out of Lightroom, and this was the final result. So before, after. So I want to talk about some of the things I actually ended up doing to this photo. So first, we have our f16 exposure. I ended up blending the f8 exposure in at the bottom of the frame, and the way the pier looked, in f8 looked a lot better than it did in f16. You can see how much softer it looks. So I wanted to actually go in and mask that pier in as best I could. In a previous edit I did of this, I really went in and lassoed everything in between there. But with this photo and a few extra tweaks in Lightroom, as far as luminosity and trying to get everything to mask, I found out that I didn't really need to do that once I just, made things blend a little bit better and matching luminosity in certain tones and things like that. So that was the blend. I did a little bit of cleanup here. Very, very small things that you guys probably can't even see. It was just mainly hot pixels, and there was a sensor spot up in the top left there. Use the Color Effects Pro from Nik Collection, which I highly recommend, a great Photoshop plugin for doing really, really solid professional edits. Did some dodging and burning, and this might not even be super noticeable, but if you look over at the grain, I don't know if this is a grain silo, some kind of silo that's been out on the Buffalo Harbor for many, many years. But I ended up just brightening up a little bit of the highlights, reflecting there on the building, and as well as the pillars. I think that's all I really did. Did some changing in the reds channel here, and you can really only see this up in the clouds, whereas you can see I actually ended up upping the reds a little bit in the curves channel here and lowering the blue just to introduce a little bit more yellow-orange into the photo. Added some mid-tone contrast, toned down the highlights just a tad, which you can see there. That was a super highlights, right? So it's really just focusing in on those really hot highlights. Adding in some sharpening, which I just threw over the whole image. And because I feel like, adding a little sharpening to the water, which does have some nice detail to it, would work fine. Did some noise reduction as well across the whole image, because it was really only introducing noise in the sky. And I thought, with some really aggressive noise reduction, sometimes you do lose a little bit of detail here. And I didn't feel like I was losing a ton of detail here on this pier. And as you can see, if I toggle this on and off, it really doesn't do a whole lot of negative things to the photo. I could definitely mask this in, which would be very tedious doing a lot of lassoing. But like I said, I think it does look pretty fine. And does get rid of quite a bit of noise too while still keeping some detail. And then the last thing I did, as you can see, there was some vignetting on all corners of this photo. And what I did basically was a little corner cleanup where I would use a marquee and select each corner where there was that kind of vignetting. And all I did was actually end up stretching them a little bit off of the edge of the photo. And as you can see, if I toggle this on and off, you can see how the vignetting goes away. And that's the reason I did that, so I don't have to do any clone stamping. I don't have to use any heel brushes, and I can still keep the photo perfectly intact for the most part. And then obviously just a signature at the end. So that is pretty much everything that was done to this photo. And yeah, before and after. So definitely a lot of advanced techniques there. Very, very happy with the final result, which I will put up on the screen now for you guys to see. This one will definitely be printed and definitely be up for sale on my site as a print very, very soon. So here is the second photo I wanted to show you guys. It's the same composition as the one prior, but this one, because of the nature of the shot, and we had to do less blending and less corrections, this one, you know, there's a lot less stuff done to it. So we have our adjusted raw straight out of camera, a little flat, but after some editing, it really does come to life. So I just started with the basic photo, did some Color Efex Pro, did a little bit of, let's see what I did here in the midtones, up the gamma of the midtones and added a little contrast. Did some changes in the blue channel. As you can see there, it does kind of bring out some contrast up there in the sky. Did a little bit of object removal here, and again, this was mostly just hot pixels, high pass filter, a little bit of noise reduction here, and I actually ended up blending this one in this time around here, doing a lot better of a job on this one where I wanted the noise reduction and where I didn't want it, which I might actually go back and redo this on the other photo. And then we did a little bit of edge cleanup. And the only reason I did this is because I noticed on a lot of these pillars there was a little bit of halo happening from probably just some, I think it might be anti-aliasing, I'm not entirely sure, but adding that high pass filter over it and the noise reduction really introduced some haloing. So I went in there, did some lassoing and some clone stamp, and just cleaned up a lot of those edges around the pier there. And that was pretty much all that needed to be done to this photo. Very, very plain and simple. Now let's take a look at the last one. So here is that under the pier shot one more time. This was the out of camera and this is after. So this photo really did not need a lot whatsoever. So the first thing I did was some cleanup. Again, this was just mainly hot pixels, and you get those a lot with long exposures, probably also depending on your camera. Did some Color Efex Pro there, more hot pixel cleanup that I ended up missing, a high pass filter, and even more hot pixels that I missed, and a signature on the end. So it was just a lot of cleanup, a little bit of sharpening, and just a little bit of Color Efex Pro to really get this image to pop the way I wanted it. And again, I tried to pull out as much detail in the top of the photo here as I could in Lightroom, and bring out some of the detail on the top of the pier there because I didn't want it to be completely black. I was going to do some noise reduction here, but this photo really didn't have a lot of noise, which was kind of surprising to me with how dark it was. I mean, there is some noise here. Maybe I could do a little bit of noise reduction on this and, you know, do a little bit of lassoing, make sure the noise reduction is not anywhere on the pier and is only on the sky and maybe on the water. Although this long exposure, the water might be really smooth, but it has a lot of texture to it. So I don't really like doing the noise reduction on that because it just kind of smooth things out a little bit. But yeah, either way, those are all the final images. I think they look fantastic. Now really quickly, I want to show you guys some prints that I have made out that'll be ready for sale very, very soon on my website. All right, so here I have a little folder with all of my prints in them, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull out just a couple here. If you guys wanna see more of my prints and me talking about photo printing in general, I could definitely make a separate video on that and show you guys pretty much all of the prints in here, which most of them are the prints that I have for sale. And I think I might make a separate video about all my prints and the ones that are for sale on my site. But yeah, this is a photographic test print from Whitewall Photo Lab. Just recently started going through them, and I think they do a really fantastic job. So this is my photo called Solitude. I don't think I've showed this yet on the channel, but it is on my my Instagram, my personal Instagram. And this was taken at Evangola State Park. Really great shot. It was a handheld shot as well, actually. And I saw this beautiful sort of light ray out in the middle of the water and had to act fast, didn't have time to set up a tripod or anything like that, and just snapped a quick photo. If I had time to set up a tripod, I would have done a focus stack, because the only thing about this photo here that you might be able to see, it is a little bit softer because it is out of focus, just because of the nature of the camera settings that I was using. But the detail on this is really, really good. I did throw a high pass filter over the water here, did some dodging and burning, and a little blue cast removal to make those white parts of the waves pop. And I think I did some noise reduction up here in the top. But this photo looks really good, and I'm very happy with the color reproduction from Whitewall. That's one of the biggest things with printing, is making sure that your color reproduction is spot on, because you want what you see on the monitor to basically be what comes out of the printer. And there is a little bit of discrepancy sometimes with color gamut, but I think they definitely nailed this one pretty spot on, and am very, very, very happy with it. And I like doing the little whiteboards as well. And as you can see, this is a photographic test print. There is some text already on the photo that they put there. And I wanted to do that mainly because these were just going to be test prints. These weren't going to be for sale. And it does save quite a bit of money when you do test prints, like a drastic amount of money, which is always good, right? So this is the next photo here. This one is called Sunset Silhouettes. This is another shot from Evangola State Park. Landscape orientation. This one I actually ended up taking as a handheld shot as well, and I got this right as I was leaving the park. Ended up looking back upon this really great scene, and there was this big sort of low spot on this cliffside here that had collected a lot of water and ended up freezing over, creating a really nice reflection here at the bottom of the screen. And I'll zoom in a little bit more here so you guys can see the detail on this. But I mean, really happy with the color reproduction. Even the colors on the horizon, maybe they look slightly off, but when I compare the ones on my phone, they still look really, really good. So I guess I can't complain too much there. And even the really dark, almost completely black spots of this photo all look really good. Everything is very, very sharp, and I am very, very happy with this one. Again, you can see this one is also another photographic test print. Yeah, it's got the watermarks on it. But yeah, really great photo. I would love to see this one blown up. Really, really big, maybe like a 41 by 23 or something, or 40 by 20, around that size. But very, very happy with this one. So these two photos, I am 100% positive they are going to be a part of my next collection on my website. It's going to be titled the Lake Erie Vistas. So be looking forward to that, and be on the lookout on my website. I'll be making a blog post, social media post as well, and I might be also making a separate YouTube video sort of announcing the release and the drop of this next collection. This is not a sponsored video for Whitewall by any means, but I saw one of my favorite photographers on YouTube, Nigel Danson, do a video for them, and I was really impressed with the quality of the work, and wanted to check it out and try it for myself, and I gotta say I am not disappointed. So that is going to do it for this vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, if you want to see a more in-detailed video about prints, let me know. I will definitely get on one of those in the future. I'll probably still make one regardless. So that is going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next one.